Hi everyone, welcome to another seminar of Psychology and Society hosted by Stillpoint. My name is Maria Laguna, and today we will discuss the phenomenon of quantification of wellness to assess human experience. We're all familiar with different practices that we use to track our moods, our productivity, and our physical activity. Can wellness be quantified? If so, what is left out? Instead of demonizing a quantitative approach and idealizing a qualitative one, the goal of today's seminar is to understand the risks, benefits, and limitation of a quantitative approach. Thank you for joining, and as always, feel free to post your comments or questions in the comment section. Quantification is an essential and unescapable aspect of our lives. The present technological advances gives us many tools to measure and track things like our steps, our heart rate, our weight, our productivity, mood changes, etc. We can also measure our followers in social media, our posts, our likes, the numbers of clicks and views that it takes to monetize a product, among other things. Today, we are going to focus on quantification in the field of psychology and mental health in general. Many argue that the popularity of quantification is partially linked to psychology's need to be seen as a real science, a science that observes and produces objective data, and that in evaluating our feelings and behaviors, it can enjoy the prestige of being called scientific. Another reason why quantification may be so popular is that there exists a strong belief that data that is obtained through quantitative methods can be objective, precise, and rigorous. Using quantitative methods to identify and assess aspects of our well-being has a number of benefits. For example, if someone conducts a research that compares two different groups of people, such as white people or black people, it can help us understand that certain aspects of well-being are not internal, but intrinsically external, such as class, race, gender, etc. Another benefit of using quantification methods to assess wellness is that these methods can be used to disrupt inaccurate beliefs and stereotypes about certain people. For example, when we measure things in communities like violent incidents, prevalence of addiction, etc., this can shed light on the role of oppression and inequality in certain communities over others, as opposed to simply blaming certain behaviors on a specific group of individuals. Another benefit of quantification is that it provides a clear and concise language to communicate to policymakers. By providing lawmakers with numeric reports that illustrate changes and challenges in the communities, we can advocate for policy change and better money allocation to programs and legislations that can promote well-being. There are some caveats to the quantification of wellness. One of them is that it can give us a false sense of security. We all know that love, work, and play are three fundamental pillars of our well-being and our mental health. But is it possible to quantify this? We may be able to measure our ability to work, our numbers of friends, the hours we spend in leisure time, but how can we quantify something so qualitative and singular as an affect? This is one of the challenges of quantification. An important caveat of quantification is that when we rely solely on numbers to assess our wellness, we risk not taking the context in consideration. We, humans, constitute and are constituted by the environment that we live in. So when we only rely on quantitative measures, we only have a partial picture of what's involved in achieving and maintaining wellness. Reductionism is one of the main criticisms of quantification. Even though there are more and more sophisticated measurement methods to explore our well-being, the complexity of the human experience cannot be reduced to numbers or graphics. It's even harder to use those numbers to illustrate well-being across cultures. We should not assume that well-being means the same thing for every person in every culture. At first glance, something as universal as a measurement in numbers may seem neutral and objective. However, numbers are always political. They carry judgments, assumptions, and meanings. The way we measure things, the things we measure, and what we do with that information can shape the ways in which we see the world, the way we regard ourselves, and our well-being. Quantification may look and sound neutral, but it is not. One of the main manifestations of quantification of wellness in our everyday lives is the practice of self-tracking. In other words, evaluating the self through the means of numbers. Self-tracking is such a prevalent practice that is now considered by many a cultural phenomenon. In fact, self-tracking is becoming so increasingly popular for mental health that the American Psychiatric Association developed a model to assist users in determining whether a self-tracking app is helpful and secure. Another example of the popularity of self-tracking is the relatively new social movement called the Quantified Self, or QS. The QS movement was first developed by two Wired magazine editors who set up a website devoted to the movement in 2008. Since then, it has become a global phenomenon with currently over 200 meetup groups in different countries around the world. According to their official website, quantifiedself.com, the Quantified Self is an international community of users and makers of self-tracking tools who share an interest in self-knowledge through numbers. If you're tracking for any reason, to answer a health question, achieve a goal, explore an idea, or simply because you're curious, you can find help and support in this page. This user and follower of the QS movement, for example, developed a tracking system of what she says she will do versus what she actually does, and whether she's satisfied or not with the outcome. Check the website for this and other examples, quantifiedself.com. More than being just measurements, self-tracking practices shape the ways in which we understand health and wellness and the ways in which we have power and agency to engage in wellness practices. One belief that comes with the practice of self-tracking, our habits, feelings, and behaviors, is that self-tracking is equal to self-knowledge. This may lead us to believe that thinking about our well-being in numbers can be more effective than traditional methods like introspection or self-reflection. But perhaps, instead of being better or worse, these two ways complement each other. Another underlying belief of the practice of self-tracking is that by collecting data, we might be able to control future outcomes. While that might be true in some circumstances, this can lead to people overestimating their ability to cope with future stressors. We may be consciously or unconsciously believing that the more we measure about our physical and mental health, the more in control we're going to be, while this may not always be the case. A very seductive aspect of the self-tracking mechanism is that they can motivate us to lead a healthier lifestyle by internalizing the habits or attitudes that we're tracking. For example, if you set a goal of walking 10,000 steps a day, you may be motivated to achieve that goal if you know you're getting closer. The same can apply for other activities that are conducive to wellness. While this belief might be true, in some circumstances, such as weight loss, smoking cessation, etc., change does not happen in a vacuum and is dependent on a number of factors which are not related to the things that we're encouraged to track. Sometimes we are tracking our well-being even when we're not aware of it. Some research has already demonstrated this. For example, aggregated smartphone usage features can predict 5 personality traits. Facebook likes can predict among other things, personal attributes, personality traits, intelligence, happiness, and addictions. Moreover, the combination of mobile phone usage and sensor data can predict with 75% of accuracy if a person has low or high levels of stress. An important tool when conducting or analyzing research on wellness is to watch out for the illusion of neutrality. Numbers are not neutral, especially when we're talking about human beings. Whenever we pose a research question, we're always leaving something outside of our scope of study. The information we consume around our wellness and the wellness of others can be infused with our own biases and the researcher's biases. In this sense, quantitative results indicators of wellness are never neutral. Reflexivity also helps us examine the relationship between knowledge and power. Once we access quantitative information about well-being and the well-being of others, what do we do with that information? What do we use it for? Who benefits from asking a certain research question and who doesn't? These questions and more are part of having a reflective approach to research. To sum up, neither a quantitative nor a qualitative methodology is the best way to approach every scientific question, especially when it comes to human behavior and feelings. The process of measuring our wellness is always a subjective act, even if we try to use objective data. So it's not a matter of selecting the best method to evaluate our wellness, but the way that we use these tools to understand ourselves and others.